me, Lauren, with Bold Notion Quilting, and this is Avery.
Hello.
We are working on getting her quilt quilted. So we have pieced the whole top, her new top for her bed, and she just wants an edge-to-edge design, which means one design all over. So I thought that she and I could kind of work together to do a sample of how I intake a quilt, in case it's helpful for any of you as you're selecting designs and threads with your clients and your customers too. So we're going to kind of go through the motions and see what there is to see. So first I get out my handy dandy intake form, okay, and words and stuff might be backwards on here, but basically I'm just going to get down my customer's information. I've got name, address, phone number, and email, which might seem like overkill, but is definitely something that you need in case you can't get a hold of someone. Not everyone does email. People don't answer their phones half the time, and sometimes you might need to send a postcard to ensure that you can get a hold of them, or go knock on their door and say, hey, your quilt's done, I tried to get a hold of you. Okay, so we've got that information there. I also have an invoice number, and then an area to put the quilt top, backing, and batting measurements in case they bring me their batting. So let's go ahead and measure the quilt top. All right, excuse me, miss, I'm going to grab this. Just stay close so I can ask you some questions. All right, so we're going to measure the quilt, and I just put it on my table. And I go from 0 to 32, folded in half, so I know that my quilt top is going to be about 64 inches wide. Hopefully after quilting and washing it won't shrink too much for her bed. We really didn't want to put a border or anything else on it, and we didn't feel like putting more blocks around the edges. So we're looking at 64 by 80. All right, you want to help me lay this out flat on your side? So I'm going to go ahead and notate that. 64 by 80. So I charge per the square inch. So I need to take 64 and multiply it by 80. That gives me a number. I charge just under 2 cents per square inch, and I do quilt for others. Mailing, quilting, boldnotionquilting.com. There is a Longarm quilting form to schedule for edge-to-edge services if you want to send in a quilt. So we're going to multiply that, and we're going to get our number, and so that's going to give us our base price for quilting. My phone is usually what I use as a calculator, and that's what's filming us right now. So I'm not going to be able to do the math, but we're going to go through the steps on everything else. So I've got my quilt top. The next thing I would do is measure my backing. Now we haven't cut her backing yet. Which, Avery, which backing did you pick?
I picked the one.
Was it the graph paper one?
Mm-hmm.
This one?
Yeah, the graph paper.
Okay. So we are going to get the tulip pink backer, right? We're going to cut it to size. Generally, I like to have 6 inches around my quilt top. Now, when you tell a client to give you 6 extra inches on either side of your quilt, they think that they can take your 64 by 80 quilt and add 6 inches. So they'll make a 70 by 86 quilt, but that only gives you 3 inches on either side, which can sometimes not be enough for your clamps and your batting and all of your things. You want 6 inches on each side of your quilt, and make sure your client knows this. So, and I do that because it's not too much and it's not too little, and it's very easy to work with. So what I do is I tell them, you're going to take your quilt top, you're going to take your length, right, so 80 inches, and you're going to add 12 inches. This will give me 6 inches on both sides of your quilts. So I know that I want to have a 92 length on one side, and then by my width is 64, and I'm going to add 12 inches to that. So my backing should be roughly 92 by 76. Okay, so I'm going to write that down so I don't forget how big it needs to be. And then as far as my batting goes, I like to have my batting a good 2 inches bigger on either side. And so it's kind of like a layered sandwich. You've got your quilt top, and then your batting sticks out just a few inches, and then your backing sticks out a few inches past that. So if my quilt top is 64 by 80, my backing should be 68 by 84, okay? Now, as far as my clients are concerned, a lot of them just buy their batting here. However, if they're bringing me in a batting, I generally don't ask them to cut it. I try to ensure that it's going to be as big or bigger than the size, and I can always cut it down because people often will make the mistake of cutting things inappropriately. And we don't want to waste any batting. All right, so the next thing I like to do is talk about batting. So what is your quilt going to be used for?
A bed.
Okay, please speak up so people can hear you.
A bed.
A bed. All right, so if you're going to use it for a bed quilt, that means we probably don't want to quilt it too densely. You want it to be flexible, soft, melty, and cuddly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you sleep, do you sleep hot or do you sleep cold? Like, do you want a warm filler? Do you want a fluffy filler? Do you want a cold filler that's going to, like, I guess when I say a warm filler, it's something that's going to keep you warm, or do you want something that's going to keep you cold? Okay, so you want something that's going to breathe and let the heat out. And then do you want something that's fluffy or something that's not fluffy?
Not fluffy.
Okay, so if it's going to be for a bed, that means we want something loose and drapey. We want to prevent using things with scrim because it can be a little bit more stiff. The more natural fibers are going to allow the quilt top to be more flexible and breathable. And then the more synthetic fibers, they're going to be more hot. They're going to hold the heat in because it just doesn't release the heat. All right, so we want bed quilt, flexible, and breathable, so something natural. Do you want it to be lighter weight, like light on you, like you have almost nothing on you, or do you want it to be heavier? Do you want to feel the weight of the quilt? Lighter. You're just like your dad. Okay, so you're probably going to want bamboo. Bamboo is really good. It's drapey, it's a natural fiber, and it's lightweight and it's flexible. So luckily bamboo isn't too yellow because you have a white quilt. Now this is kind of a gray-white quilt, but because you have a white quilt, it could, natural batting underneath could look a little bit yellow. So let's see what that looks like. And I think in this case, we're just gonna have to maybe not care so much because you want it to look and feel a certain way. But if we take the batting and put it underneath, yeah, that one's fluffy, but it's hot because it's polyester. So this is closer to the bamboo color. Now if you put your white under there, right in the middle, put it under more so it's touching the other one. Okay. So see how, I don't even know if you guys can see in the camera, but I can see it. So you see how this looks a little more yellow?
Yeah.
And this looks more white?
Yeah.
So is it going to bother you if your quilt looks a little bit dull and drab?
Nope.
Or if it looks crisp and white? Because I do have bleached white, 100% cotton, that will feel the same way as the bamboo will feel. It's just a smidge bit heavier than the bamboo, but not by a lot. You probably won't even notice.
Just the bamboo is fine.
Okay. We're going to do the cotton.
Hey!
It'll keep your quilt looking whiter.
No.
You really want bamboo?
Yes.
Oh man, it's gonna make it look yellow.
Well, that's your problem.
That is my problem, you're right. That's what the client wants, that's what the client gets. So, we're gonna write batting choice. She's gonna use bamboo, and at 64 inches, she's gonna need like 1.75 yards of bamboo on average. Okay, and then let's see here, backing, we already made the point. Again, 1.75 yards of 108. We're going to square off when we're done. And of course, we're going to have to create the binding and apply. All right, so quilt top description. I always have a box for that in the comments. I'm preventing writing over the top of the quilt top because I don't want to get Sharpie on it. So what would you say this quilt top looks like?
A rainbow.
A rainbow. It's a drunkard's path. And Tula pink fabrics.
Uh-huh.
And it's white background. Now what color thread do you want on this sucker? Flatten it out. Like, do you want to see the thread on the white areas? Do you want it to blend best with the color and then you see the thread on the white?
I think it'd be like a light gray, so like you can still see it on the white, but on the blocks as well.
Like a light gray? So your off-white color, does it look kind of grayish or does it look like pinkish?
It's kind of more like a gray. So maybe a little bit of darker gray.
I thought for sure you'd pick a blue. So we have a couple gray colors. And then let's just see what steel looks like, or like what's your favorite color blue? You can pick. Alright, so when we're looking at threads, she wants to pick something that'll kind of match with the background, and you might be able to see it on the colors. So we're going for these lighter gray colors. We're going to try those out. There's no way for me to give you a close comparison to show you a close view, but just so you kind of know how we do it. That's nice. That's a good medium color. It matches this. So I generally take a long line of thread and I put it over the whole thing to kind of see how it's going to blend. You'll see it a little bit on the white, and you're going to see it a lot on the colors because it's so light. And so I try to get something that's equally offensive. I don't want it to just disappear on one color and the other generally, but of course it's up to the client for them to choose. Okay. Now bone is a particularly good color. That's the color that Avery has there because it's kind of a pinkish off-white, and because she has so many purples and greens and blues in here, it's really going to blend a lot better and it won't look as harsh on top of the colors. Okay, that blends perfectly with the Snow White grunge, and then it definitely looks less offensive on all the other colors, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
And then this one is steel blue, so it's a lighter blue color, which I can see. Go ahead, open that up. I can see kind of equally on both sides, both in the white and in the darks of the purples, but of all of them, the steel blue, which is a medium color, is the least offensive. Okay, so this one you're not going to see as much on the colors, but you're going to see it a lot more in the white, which is fine if you like blue and you want to see the blue too.
I want to see the stuff on the blocks more, the patterns on the blocks more than
So that will hide. You mean you want to see the stitching pattern more on the blocks? Okay. Make sure you put it in the bottom of the comb.
I know.
Okay, so of all these colors, which one do you like best?
Bone.
You like bone? So if you look at these, I think this one blends the best with your blocks. Okay, so if we look at all of these colors, bone blends really well with the white, but you see it a lot on top of your fabrics. This steel blue still blends really well with the white. It's a slightly blue color, which is in your color palette, but it blends a little bit better on the blocks too. So this one is what I call equally offensive. It shows kind of evenly everywhere. So when you quilt it, you're going to see it everywhere. Whereas the white is going to blend with the white and you're only going to see it on your block. So it's really going to jump out at you when it's on your busy fabrics. Is that the look you're going for, or do you want it to kind of be even all over?
Even all over.
Okay. So of the colors that we went with, can I see that real quick just to show the camera? We picked 3 light colors to look at. We had smoke, mercury, and bone, okay? And I picked these 3 colors because they were going to blend the most with our background.
I had these two.
And then she picked, is that sky or blizzard?
It's sky and steel blue.
Sky and steel blue, okay? So of these colors, this is a medium dark color and this is a medium light color. So this medium light color is the one that was most evenly offensive. You can start putting those back across the entire quilt top. So I see it equally on my light fabrics as I do on my dark fabrics. Now if you're not sure how it's going to look because one line of thread can be hard to see, you can take a bunch of thread off and kind of pull it up on top of itself and kind of make a thread blob so that you can kind of get a good idea for how it would look if you had multiple thread layers that kind of meet up. So when your quilting designs and your feathers come in and you get lots of lines on those feathers that kind of meet up in the spine, that's how you'll see how the colors kind of stacking up and close to each other with the threads will look, okay? So that's a great way to gauge your thread. So we are going to use steel blue, So we'll need to get that on your intake form, and then we need to pick your design. So the very last thing that I do, once we kind of pick a thread color, I like to pick the thread color before we pick the design, because then the design isn't going to influence what thread color you pick. And if you have a couple different colors, you can narrow down. You can always pick something else if you want, but it's better to pick something that everyone agrees on before you pick your design, because then it doesn't get muddied up with how dense the design is. So my clients have two ways that they can look at designs. I've got a binder of my edge-to-edge quilting for boldnotionquilting.com, and they can go through and they can look at different designs in the binders. It's separated by like modern, geometric, whimsical, floral. So we got all our different things in here. But a lot of times it's just easier for me to use my tablet to show them, since I'm going to be using this to quilt anyway. And I have two different computerized quilting systems that I use. This one just happens to be the one that is closest on the Longarm. I have both an APQS quilt path and also the Untitled quilting system. Okay, so this is kind of a fantastic way to just show them some quick, easy things. It's also nice to have a binder on the table for people to kind of just look through, so that they can get a sense for the kind of designs that you offer. All right, so now you had an idea for what kind of designs you wanted on this. What was it?
Diamonds or what was it? I was like diamonds and something else. Diamonds and the biohazard.
Can you speak up so people can hear you?
Diamonds or the biohazard.
Okay, so diamonds or biohazard. So let's look at biohazard. Okay, now if I recall properly, when we did this design on your brother's quilt, it was pretty dense. Okay, let's see how big I can get it. Let's get it to 14. Okay, now if I do a true look, this is how close your stitching is apart, and I think that's kind of dense because you have a lot of stitches kind of close to each other. Are you pushing on it gentle? Okay, so that's what it looks like. So let's see if we have a diamond design. Look, we got a couple diamonds. Do you like that one? Pretty simple.
I like one of these two.
Okay, let's try this one. It's a little more modern, this is a little more traditional. Okay, so if we do, so right now we have to offset it. So this is what my pattern looks like on my computer system, just putting it in there. And I'm gonna change it so that it's half offset, changes where it goes.
Pokeball.
I can find a Pokeball pattern if you want that. They have those.
No, it just kind of looks like it. It's weird.
Okay. We're going to fill in some of the spaces. And then we're going to change the row height to 6 inches.
Like that.
Do you like that?
Yeah.
So that has big spaces unquilted, which is so hard for me with pantographs sometimes, but let's see here, true size. So that has a very large space unquilted. So we're looking at the true size of stitching, and so I can see the spaces, basically how they're going to be. And if I stick my fist on there, my stitching's bigger than a fist width apart, which means that when it's washed and worn, if there's any fullness in the quilt, you're going to see shift and movement, and there is fullness because it's all pieced kind of on the bias. So I usually want to quilt something a little bit denser than this. Now I can change the height of the road.
So the biohazard?
Well, yeah, the biohazard would do that. If you want biohazard, we'll do biohazard. But I'm worried you'll think that it's got too many stitches in it and then you won't like using it. Okay. So this might be better. So this is at 3 inches per diamond. and those aren't too close, and it's less than a fist width apart. So then let's zoom out. How do you like that as your pattern? You like that? Okay. So what I generally do is I write down the specifications, especially if I have to change the size or scope of the pattern. Are there any special instructions I have to know about your quilt? Is there a specific top or specific bottom part of your quilt?
This is the top, this is the bottom.
Okay. So you want your squirrels upside down?
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna put the row height at 3 inches. 3 inches, pattern height, density is 0.81, gap is negative 2.769, and the offset is 50%. Okay, so then let's see what this is named because I didn't even look at it. It's called Diamond in the Rough. Right, so now that we have picked a design for her quilt top, we've got the thread, we know how dense we want the design. We've talked about batting, we've talked about threads. The last thing I talked to them about is squaring off their quilt top. It's a service that I provide, not everybody provides it. You know, some people charge a fee for it. I just keep all of the scraps and donate them to my local quilt guild. I don't charge an actual fee, but I do keep all of the fabrics, the batting and everything, and I send them off to local quilt guilds so that they can make use of them for community quilts and then quilts for the local dog shelters and stuff too. Let's see, so I square them off, and then I've got options for if they need it rushed and different things like that. But I hope that this tutorial was helpful in kind of the questions that I would ask and get a feel for my clients. Thank you, Miss Avery, for helping me with this video. I surely appreciate it, and we should have your quilt quilted and bound by the weekend, so I'm excited. Do you have any questions for me? Any concerns? No? All right. Well, again, I'm Laura with Bold Notion Quilting. Thank you guys for joining me for this quick tutorial on how we would kind of intake a quilt for a client. And again, thank you, Avery, for joining me, and I hope that this is helpful for you guys. Be sure to click the like and subscribe button above if you are new to the channel and want to get some more helpful information, and feel free to share on your social media channels so that other people can get this information as well. Take care and have a wonderful day, y'all. Happy quilting. Bye.